stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
Episode 49, a fine one we have for you today. I mean, I hope it is anyway. I'm not in the future either, so this is all just speculation. But I know that I'm excited about where we're starting, because last time, while we had a lot of the session dealing with negotiating on Hyperion, like Emile getting in to have a meeting with the Builder to be able to try and convince Hyperion to step in the way and come to the defense of the Vault Hunters. Emile set up that meeting and then had it out, went back and forth with the Builder, was able to convince him to help, but less directly. Basically, Emile convinced him that it was in his best interest to help them be able to salvage the Reacher, because that would be an incredible project for the Builder to be able to take on, get that into operating order again, because it would be a tremendous ship. And so, because of his desire to have glory and profit based on that, the Builder has been convinced to help Emile construct the pump that's going to be necessary to dredge the Reacher out of the magma. He's not willing to send in any ships or come to the defenses in a physical sense, but he's going to help them speed up that process, and hopefully Emile will be able to find ships inside and all that stuff, but Hyperion remains relatively neutral in this conflict. Emile was not able to convince him of that much. But still, a win's a win, and that's all good, though admittedly that's not why I'm excited to get back into this. The ending moments of last episode that really have my gears spinning and having me itching to get back into this, because during that time when Emile is waiting and coming up with this pump design with the Builder and starting to make it and everything, like that's kind of happening in the background, word spread around about this plan. The idea that the Vault Hunters are going to be distracted with the Imperium, that's pretty common knowledge on Hyperion, including to a couple of people that have come here all the way from Anubis, a couple of scouts that are here to try and get the Chaos Crystal. You know, they're pursuing their own agenda to try and bring Sapphire, a planet from another reality, into this reality. And key to that is finding this huge chunk of Chaos Crystal that'll allow that to bridge realities. They know that Emile is here. And they also know that Zoya Silva, as representative of the Wooden Heart, kind of has it in for Emile. You know, he can join a long list of people that have it in for Emile, but Emile has made an enemy of the Wooden Heart in his action. And so these two scouts decided that if they try and capture Emile, one of them could take him back to the Wooden Heart, and the other could then go and procure the Chaos Crystal, because they don't think it's going to take both of them if they do it as a stealth operation. And so the last moment that we had last time was they slipped a poison into Emile's drink, and while he did notice it before taking like a tremendous amount of the dose, he's still definitely affected by it. You know, we wound up setting his momentum down to 0 as his world is full of hallucinations. You know, I feel like the way I described it last time may have gone a little bit too far in invalidating the fact that he did have a hit in noticing the poison. And so I do want to make sure that this isn't too much like a miss. He is definitely having hallucinations, but he can still make out reality pretty well. It's just that everything that he sees has a much darker kind of maliciousness to it in the way he perceives it. You know, it plays on his paranoia a little bit, and certain specifics aren't quite right, and it just throws off everything that he tries to do. But I think that the hallucinogenic effects would have been way more pronounced and more just like completely overwhelming if he had gotten the full dose, which he didn't. So he has this, he knows they're coming in for him. His paranoia has increased his awareness of the fact that there are a couple of Anubis cultists coming in on him. Not that he has the full context of what that means or why they're after him. He doesn't know about their affiliation with the Wooden Heart, but they're closing in on him, and we stopped there last time. Now, at the very end of the episode, I actually had a prompt I wanted to name that drug. And in service of a vignette this time, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to announce the name that I have chosen for that drug, and a little bit more about the specifics about it. That'll be through the vignette of this drug being made, this poison being made. So the name of it is The Forsaken Embrace. The vignette we get is all the way back on Anubis. And we've talked about how Anubis is very into the occult. They do weird ritualistic stuff over there. I think what we see is a chamber that's like circular and very temple-like. You know, the whole room is lit by flames. It's very low technology. It stands out a bit, in particularly from Hyperion and all these space stations and stuff that we see. This is now just, you know, stone temple, lit flames, full-on people in like robes, hooded robes, undergoing a process. And we see that there is a central flame in this room that is heating up a crucible. You know, there's a lot of chanting going on in the room and stuff as there is a package covered in cloth, you know, like a sort of rectangular thing covered in cloth that is being passed from person to person around a circle. And everybody is, it's all in a language we don't really understand, but every time it goes around the circle, like somebody holds it, says some words, maybe performs a few gestures, they like hold it close to themselves and then pass it along. And it makes its way all around the circle. And then eventually, when that's finished, the kind of like leader of the ritual gets it back and brings it onto a table next to this crucible. And they undo the cloth on this package. And we see that inside is like an iron ingot, this like black iron ingot. And they take this metal bar and place it into the crucible. And we see, and it starts bubbling and melting and going down into a molten form. And they start adding in all kinds of other reagents and stirring it up and adjusting the heat. It becomes this whole process with more chanting, and like the people in the circle are doing very particular movements. It's almost dance-like in a way, as different things are put into the crucible that make these different vapors and stuff. And in the end of it all, when it goes through this whole processing, it goes through like a lembic sort of thing that takes some of these vapors that are coming off of it and then distills them down into this black, cloudy sort of fluid. And a lot of what's left in the crucible, you know, the molten iron itself, is then discarded. Like it comes out of the room and we follow it along as it's brought to just like a complete disposal area, where it's not cast into any kind of shape or used like iron, like you might imagine. Like, this is used up as far as they're concerned. And the vial of this cloudy liquid that we see, we kind of flash ahead to a time where it's being poured in a drink, and we see that this is Emile's drink that he gets, and that this is the creation of this poison. And to give a little context to what I think the reason why I chose this name of the Forsaken Embrace and how it all ties in, I think that Anubis has discovered a kind of ritualistic way to extract the power of iron that has had a vow sworn over it, and particularly iron that has had a vow that was forsaken. And that you can take some amount of the properties and the power, that binding power, you can swear certain vows on iron and distill that kind of nature into a poison in a way that makes a kind of effect on people. And then in particular, if it is a forsaken vow, you can make these very negative effects that just mess with somebody's reality. It kind of dooms them in a way. And they call it the Forsaken Embrace. And for my purposes, I'm actually kind of curious. I'd love to come up with what was the specific vow on this iron that was for, like, when the vow was forsaken, this iron that they used for this poison. What was that vow? So I'm going to roll on an oracle here. I'm going to roll a character goal, and then I might roll some like action and theme or something like that to kind of narrow this down. So let's see. The character goal is maintain order, and I'm going to roll action and theme, release, and rival. I think that there was a vow that was made as a kind of like, you two need to make amends and like cut this shit out. I don't know if this even necessarily happened on Anubis. I feel like the people of Anubis actually collect, like, it's so precious to them, this power. They collect iron from vows sworn all over the place. Like, some of it is from Anubis, some of it is from other places. Like, they don't all just stay on planet all the time. And so somewhere in the world, there was a place where there was a judgment made by a leader that they're like these two warring houses or something like that. And they keep causing all of this chaos in the streets by fighting each other. It's making big problems. And the leader of this area made them each swear to each other because each house had kind of like messed up the other one and taken in prisoners, things like that. And we're going to take release rival as very literal here, where there was a vow like, you're all going to make amends, you're going to shake hands and step away. Nobody's going to do anything more. You're going to release each other's prisoners. You're going to swear on iron to do it. And so one of the sides, he swore that he would release the rival. That's not the exact phrasing, but like there was one person in particular that his house had held in a kind of prison area. He swore that he would release him, and then he killed the man. And so it's kind of a little bit debated whether or not that qualified. Like, is that a forsaken vow by the exact phrasing he used? Like, he did release him from this mortal coil. So it became this whole thing, and the people of Anubis salvaged this iron because I think even that ambiguity of like the tension of whether the vow was forsaken or not, it almost gives it even more power. And so this one was a particularly potent specimen to collect and bring back to Anubis. And this is the one that was used to poison Emile. And maybe that'll be relevant, maybe it won't be. Anyhow, I feel like that's definitely enough to qualify for giving us the momentum of doing a vignette. So we're going to start at +1 instead of +0. As we now move back into the present and catch up with Emile, who has indeed been poisoned by this forsaken embrace, feels like every beat of his heart as the paranoia sets in. And we described last time how he even sees his attackers as like they look all the more ominous and like these dark, shadowy figures. They might as well look like the Grim Reaper to him, just coming in. It's not literally what he's seeing, but what he sees is embellished by all these details that aren't there. And he is freaking out. He knows they mean him harm, and he needs to escape. Now, we could just do this as a direct scene challenge, where Emile is just trying to run away. Now, he's in kind of a public area, but they're not far from, like, the bazaar, which is not as populated as before, but it's still an easy place to get lost in. And he knows his ways around into, like, the underground. Emile might be thinking that he could escape into there and lose them. Why don't we indeed do that? So let's begin the scene. We're going to do this as a scene challenge. So the objective here is definitely to escape the cult of Anubis. Oh, before we do that, actually, before we officially start this scene challenge, I forgot one more thing. We need to check the magpie coup clock. Does it fill in its final segment here? We talked about how it's probably been at least a good, like something on the order of days, maybe as much as a week that Emile has been up here working on this pump. It wouldn't be too long because his alibi is only going to hold for so long. But it's definitely been days. And I think that's enough for us to consider this. When we ask the Oracle if this advances more, I think we can consider this a 50-50 shot. People are getting antsy. Let's see. Does Magpie's coup advance? Yes, it does. Ooh, I rolled a 50. So it's right on the line right there. But 1 through 50 is yes, 51 through 100 is no. So we fill in that final segment while Emile is not here. So I'm going to choose to actually leave that in the background. We're not going to explore exactly what that looks like because we're not there, but we know when Emile does return, Valkyrie is not going to be in charge anymore. Magpie and his people are. They were successful. I'm not rolling for that. It's just that happens. Magpie will be in charge. And we'll see what that means for Emile when he gets there, but he's got more direct problems. So, now let's start that scene challenge. So Emile's point here, his goal is to escape the pursuers, escape the Anubis pursuers. I guess it's kind of a weird phrasing, but it'll do. It gets the point across. I think it's fair. I'll change it to lose them. Like lose the Anubis pursuers. It's a subtle difference, but I don't know. I like it more that way for whatever reason. So let's see, you have a clear advantage? No, definitely not that. You are ready to act, would be dangerous, or you are unprepared or outmatched, formidable. I think the reason I'm going to go for dangerous rather than formidable is because Emile did indeed get that success on identifying the poison. Had he not, this definitely would have been formidable. But he's ready to act. He's aware enough of what's going on. He's like taken aback a little bit. He could have been more prepared. Because usually he likes having an advantage, but we're going to set this as dangerous. And we get a 4-segment clock on here. So we need to face danger or secure advantage to take action. What might Emile do to, because we don't have anything in the way of momentum right now. We need all the help we can get. How might Emile secure an advantage? Is there any way that maybe he could try and rely on his computer to see for him? Since he can't trust his own judgment, like his perceptions are all fucked up. Maybe he could get his computer to kind of make decisions for him and boil it down to very simple terms. Where like, he has got information overload right now, and it's, with his paranoia, it's throwing him off. But internally, he has enough experience to just have a faith in his computer. So maybe. So how would the computer represent him in ways that look or are somehow different to him? What could he set up? Maybe it's about audio as opposed to visual stuff? Is there some way that maybe his computer could, like, truly physically move him towards certain things? I think we're going to keep this simple. I mean, it is just a secure an advantage. It's not a full-on face danger. As quickly as he can, he is going to set his computer up to it's basically like a map program. I don't think he is full-on creating this program now. That would be unreasonable. He doesn't have time to do that. So I'm not going to get my creating a complex program thing. Like, that's not what's happening here. But he's opening up something that already exists to just, like, pathfind for him and make a giant arrow that just all he has to do is follow that arrow, and he trusts in the computer's judgment of, like, the risk assessment and everything. Get him give him an efficient path to get him back to the building that he knows has the entrance into the underground. That seems like a simple enough thing he could tell the computer to do. It doesn't have to do risk assessment. It just keeps him oriented when he might be losing his sense of direction. Yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing he could do very quickly. Certainly with a supercomputer on his hip that he's very experienced with. So, we're going to secure an advantage here. I don't think this actually qualifies for my tech asset. I'm not configuring, optimizing, hacking, or disrupting an electronic system. Not exactly. Like, not in the way that really means. This is much closer to the creating a computer program for a specific function, but as we already said, I'm not full on doing that. So this is just going to be a secure an advantage with wits, as we try and set up this arrow to just guide us to where we're going, so we don't have to think as much or rely on our senses. At least, not all the background stuff. So here we go. This is definitely going to be a wits move. And we get... Alright, just barely, but it is a strong hit. So you're successful. Take 2 momentum and add +1 on your next move. It is not a strong hit with a match, so we don't get to also mark progress on the thing. But 2 momentum is... I'm going to be really happy about that for the moment. That brings us all the way up to 3. And importantly, we have a 1 on our move. So he sets that up. The arrow is now there, and it certainly leads him to just the doorway to get out of here. Like, I imagine when he's in this cantina at the moment, there aren't a lot of ways out. It's kind of nestled into, it's like a little den, like a little cave in the side of a wall that opens up into a wider open, like the bazaar. This is on kind of the periphery of it and needs to navigate into the bazaar and then through all of what's there to get to the specific... I forget if we had a name for that establishment that he knows has the way into the underground, but whatever, it's lost to me now. The arrow's pointing him to the door, and I think Emile, he was even sitting at the bar itself. He sees the pursuers coming in, flanking him on either side, and I think that the fastest way to the door is kind of indeed like the Moss Isley bar, where like it's kind of there's a racetrack kind of shape where the bartender is inside and it goes all the way around. I think the door is on the far side of where Emile is. Like you would have to, the fastest, like as the crow flies, way to get to that door would be going straight over the bar and like hop over the other side rather than have to go all the way around, because Emile's kind of in the middle of it on the other side. He's got these 2 pursuers coming in. So I think what I'm going to do is we're going to face danger as Emile tries to use edge to just like nimbly climb up and leap over the bar to the other side to just really get out of being a little bit surrounded by his pursuers, taking a bit of a shortcut. Certainly easy to see why this would be a dangerous thing to try. He could easily get hurt doing it. He could piss off the bartender doing it. A lot of problems could come. Let's see what we do. So, face danger with edge in the scene challenge mode. We get a +1 from our secure and advantage. And we get... Okay, this one's a weak hit. So we're successful and may mark progress, but we also encounter a complication or setback. Envision what occurs and fill a clock segment. So, due to this not being a miss, but still being some kind of a hit, I don't think it's that Emile is short or anything like that. I think he clears the jump, but the reason the clock segment is filled up is... So in the process of going over the bar, Emile like breaks some bottles and stuff, and the bartender is pissed and goes, "Get back here!" and slams on a button underneath the bar that is beginning to like close the shutters on the way out of here so that Emile can't escape. And so that makes it all the more likely he could get caught up. So we fill in one segment on the clock. The shutters are closing. Emile would love to be on the other side and like not be caught up in here, and especially if the Anubis folk are caught behind the shutters, he could really gain some ground there. Like, you can see through the shutter, so they'd be able to see where he's heading up until a point, but it would still really help him gain some ground. So I feel like it's pretty direct, but Emile just needs to put on the speed right now and hopefully just make it through before that closes. I think we might be able to... If Emile had his full faculties, I might have him be able to, like, quickly enough try and, like, hack into the closing shutters to, like, stall them and give him some extra time. But he's too thrown off for that to make sense to me. I don't think he can do that. I think the only way out right now is direct speed. Unless he has any other quick trick that he can think... Any other quick trick that I can think of. But nothing's really coming to mind. So let's just do it. It's another face danger with edge, this time without a +1. As he just tries to pick up the pace very directly, like gain his balance back, because it's kind of hard after you hit the ground with that sort of a leap. Like regain his footing, put his head down, and just get through as quickly as he can and dive beneath the grating as it's closing. Definitely another face danger. Definitely with edge. This time we get... Okay, it's another weak hit. So it's the same as before. We get to mark progress, but we are also going to mark a circle as there is a complication. So, importantly, Emile does make it through the shutters. One of the guys from Anubis is actually like really fast as well and makes it in there in time to just stands beneath the shutters and with just one hand holds a palm up to the shutter and like, oh no, I got it. So Emile does make it through the shutters. He dives through, kind of rolls, gets back on his feet. The shutters close behind him. He thinks that he's got a tremendous advantage, but we see some more occult weirdness from the Anubis people. Because these shutters are made of iron, and I think they've got all kinds of weird stuff to them about this understanding of using and manipulating iron. They get to the shutters, and we see one of them comes up and like the tips of their fingers take on a kind of like purplish glow. And they put them in the spaces in between the rung, in between the slats, and then peel the iron apart like it's just a curtain. It doesn't make any kind of metallic squeal or anything like that. They're not like bending it back. They're making the iron just like they're just shaping it to their own whim. So they peel this open and they are not stuck in here at all. It cost them only a moment. And then the one who wasn't doing that is able to just charge through the hole. So, you know, the one who is doing it, it maybe takes a bit of a toll on him. But the other one who did not have to is just hot on Emile's heels. So they are now just running through the bazaar. We still hear in the faint background the cries of the bartender. "You're going to pay for that! Emile Spencer is blah, 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 blah." Emile, everybody certainly knows who he is. So he's going to get a bill. Or somebody's going to have to pay on his behalf, something like that. But the pursuit continues. We're in the middle of the bazaar. There's stalls everywhere. This is now, you know, your classic chasing. There's a million things to be able to just try and topple over to screw up the pursuer. A lot of different blind alleys and stuff to cut through and tents to try and sneak on the other side, like shortcuts to try and take. Emile does have a little bit of familiarity with this place, but he's not really relying on it because he doesn't want to rely on his own perceptions and memory right now. He's just following the arrow. So maybe we can secure in another advantage before, well, by represented by all the various toppling and stuff. Which means I think, unfortunately, this is going to be more of an iron move than anything, because he needs to, like, ideally take some heavy items and just topple them down to be in the way. And he's not great at it, but he's going to try. No, okay, I've got it. Emile is going to try and get an advantage here where he is going to be on the lookout for anything being sold in the bazaar that's like lightweight. He's going to try and find the type of thing he can snatch up and like throw on the ground to make like a big blinding flash or loud noise, like anything like that that might throw off the pursuer or maybe even just bean him with it. But something he can grab and just chuck, the right kind of object. So he's going to try and see what he can find, securing an advantage with wits as he's hoping something around him can fill that kind of a role. And with a strong hit, he's definitely going to find something suitable. So we get 2 momentum. We get to have a +1 on the next move. Let's see. I am going to roll a descriptor and focus to get an idea of what kind of thing he might have been able to find. I found abandoned symbol. Now, in this case, I'm going to keep it relatively simple. Abandoned, I'm going to interpret that as he has found a stall that, like, nobody is manning it right now because, you know, this whole area is still, it's downsizing. There aren't nearly as many people here. They're maybe in the process of taking out their wares, but some of it is left behind, and Emile is able to run through and grab something without without the shop owner even seeing them. And for symbol, I'm just going to consider it like it's representations. Like this is somebody who does like art forms and stuff, sculpture. And so it's like this abandoned place where just an artisan makes some cool artwork and sells it to people passing through. And Emile is able to find something that, you know, it's not made to be thrown, certainly. It's not going to be that easy, but it's heavy enough and it's small enough that Emile could grab it and try and just throw it at the dude's head or knee or wherever. Like if he hit him with it, it would smart when that connected with you. But I think part of the trick with it is that it is heavy enough that throwing it is actually going to be an iron move more than like an edge move, because he's got to be able to make it actually go the distance to connect well. He finds this kind of, maybe it's like a stonework, like vase or something like that. That's, you know, very decorative and everything. And Emile picks it up with 2 hands, turns and like throws it right at the cultist's head. And so we get a +1 on this move as we get the iron to try and just smash this guy to throw him off and allow Emile to get some good distance. There's definitely going to be a face danger. Iron with a +1. Oh, no, that is a miss. I rolled an 8 and a 10 on my challenge dice, and even with a good move, it's hard to overcome that, but certainly not with my iron, not even with a +1. So you fail, or a momentary success is undermined by a dramatic turn of events. Fill a clock segment and pay the price. On a miss of the match with this wasn't, fill 2 segments and pay the price. Okay, so we're at 3 out of 4. We've got 4 progress on trying to escape, but clearly this thing is heavier than Emile expects. He picks it up and he tries to throw it backwards, but he throws it in and he like whirls around and it doesn't go the distance. And I think the price that I'm going to pay on this is that the simplest thing that I could do that really represents it pretty well is I feel like that costs him enough time. He's also going to lose some momentum here. So I'm just going to consider it the 1 because while it is a pay the price, we are also kind of mostly losing the clock segment here. So we don't make progress. We fill in a clock segment. We lose a little bit of momentum as, you know, the dude catches up more and Emile has to take a moment trying to re-get his bearings because like when he whirls it around, he kind of spins a little bit and loses track of like some of his sight lines. Like it's pretty dark in here. And for a moment, he can't tell which way he was supposed to be going anymore. And he takes him that beat to find the arrow on his AR to direct him like, oh no, I need to turn around. And so it costs him some time. He loses some momentum. He's thrown off and he knows that the guy is hot on his heels. So he is ever hopeful that he can maybe get to the place, get into the underground without the guy noticing. And while it's kind of direct and not the most interesting, I do feel like in a chase at the moment, the most important thing you could do is just put the pedal to the metal, gain that speed, gain that distance. So we're just going to do just a regular face danger with edge as Emile just tries to not get distracted, trying to come up with a clever plan, but just get to the place he needs to be in time. Because he remembers, like, that door had a code to it. He could get in and, like, close the door behind him and lock the dude out, and he'd have a moment where, like, sure, the cultist would probably be able to get in there relatively soon, but by the time he did, Emile would have seemingly disappeared, and maybe the cultist doesn't know about the underground. They probably don't. So Emile's really putting all of his eggs in that basket. Facing danger with edge, we get. Okay. This is a miss with a match. However, even with our low momentum, this was double 3, and we have 4 momentum. We can burn momentum to turn this into a strong hit with a match, and they were absolutely going to do that. The best possibility that we can have for momentum, especially when we don't even have a lot of it. We're barely burning momentum, and we can turn a strong hit, and we can turn a miss with a match into a strong hit with a match. Absolutely, I'm going to take that deal every time. So we're successful in mark progress, and because it is a strong hit with a match, we mark progress twice. That puts us at 8 out of 10 on this. We're really likely to make this work well, actually. So I think what this represents, Emile indeed, like, he's just faster. Like, the guy is wearing clothing that's less conducive to running quickly, and Emile is so terrified, he's got all the adrenaline, that he's just able to outrun the dude. Really well, in fact. And so he picks up the pace, and he gets behind what this represents is he gets beyond the door. He can get in there, and he has enough of a lead on the other dude that he's definitely going to set his computer to just hack the door open. The numbers are all over the place in his vision. He can't use the keypad well, like, everything is messed up. He just needs, like, a script kiddie kind of auto hack program to just get open this door. It's not hard. It's not going to be something he's creating. It's not a complex program. This, however, is hacking or disrupting an electronic system. So we're going to get a +1 on this move as we face danger, wits with a +1, and we have the opportunity to press our luck if we get a weak hit. So let's do this stuff. Well, let's make our break. Okay. We do have a weak hit, and, well, let's see. I could re-roll it with a +2, but at the same time, all that would happen is that I'd be successful, and, like, what do I really have to gain? I'm going to fill in the last segment, which gets me to 10 out of 10 progress, and fill the clock, and I'm about to finish this scene either way. I'm not going to risk the idea of this turning into a miss with a match for no benefit. Because, yeah, I really don't have anything to gain on aiming for that strong hit. So we're going to leave it. The complication is, I think, just... the complication is just that he's not going to be able to lock the door behind him in time. Like, it takes him enough time to be able to get the door open because he doesn't just remember the code, that he loses a lot of that progress, and it's done in such a way that he can't just quickly... I don't know. Something about it goes weird, and his perception is off. He doesn't know how to just get it to just lock the door behind him. Or maybe he doesn't think about it. Like, he's so preoccupied with it, he, like, closes the door, but it's not locked. So he doesn't have as much of a moment, and so the clock, everything fills up. We're at 10 out of 10. The clock fills, which means we automatically finish the scene as Emile desperately just, like, goes down into the underground, or at least attempts to. We're going to finish the scene and see if that's what happens. So we're making a roll against this 10 out of 10. Let's see how it goes. Well, I rolled a 1 and a 3. We would have been fine with a strong hit a long time ago. Importantly, Emile's plan clearly works. He goes into the underground. We see this from the perspective of the cultist for a moment. And, like, the door is closed. And then it takes him only a moment. And when he finally, like, he catches up to where Emile was, opens the door. It's only been, like, maybe 10 seconds that he lost Emile's vision at most. Like, you know, Emile runs in here, closes the door, takes him several seconds to catch up, throws the door open, and he's vanished. The cultist looks around, trying to figure out what the hell happened, but he's got no trace of where Emile went. In fact, he probably runs through the other side, thinking, like, there's an open door on the other end, and goes out into the bazaar thinking Emile must be on the other side. But he's not. And we see Emile is down in the catacombs, fucking freaking out down there, but, like, a hand clapped over his mouth, trying to not make noise, as he listens for the footsteps above to just run past, and waiting to make sure it's been enough time. But for the moment, he's safe in the underground. Now, the first thing that I'm going to have Emile do while he's down here, I think he kind of needs to get his shit together. Because while if he were completely sober-headed, he would understand that, like, yes, he's having a bad experience due to drugs. He's been poisoned. It will pass. This is not an especially harmful poison. If he just waits it out, he'll be fine. They don't know where he is. He'll be okay. The problem is, he's not clear-headed and sober. And everything looks more terrifying to him right now. He is in the middle of a dark catacomb that looks like an awful dungeon of just looming, yawning darkness. Threats implied behind every shadow that he can't tell. This is his place of safety, but at the same time, it seems like he's gone into a worse situation. And so I want him to make a roll. I'm going to try to secure an advantage here with heart, because this is about his resolve. This is about him calming himself down to recognize that I'm okay. This is the better place to be. Basically, avoid doing something against his better judgment. Help himself see that this is the safest place that he can be. And so it's gaining leverage just against his own bad perceptions to help him wait out the worst and like ride the wave of this like bad trip. Get to the other side of it. So we're going to secure an advantage with heart. And we do get a weak hit on it. So it's either 2 momentum or 1 on my next move. I feel like this would be more appropriate. Considering the drugs are hindering our momentum, let's get the momentum back. Oddly enough, this is a weird time where we're actually getting momentum by taking deep breaths and like stalling for time a little bit. He's calming himself. He's assuring himself down here, just like mutter it. Like once he's confident that the pursuers have left, he's starting to kind of like mutter a little bit as he's down below on this ladder, pacing around a little bit, assuring himself out loud that it's going to be okay, that he's lost them. And he's like raving like a lunatic right now down there. But it's keeping his mind occupied from doing something else. He is just getting his bearings, assessing the situation quite literally. I mean, we did just do a move that was triggered by when you assess a situation. He is describing everything that he is seeing and everything that happened and when it started. And he's putting together the pieces that he's been drugged. And that's really why this was he's gaining momentum back, is he's understanding why he's experiencing this thing. Now, it's a weak hit because he's not able to keep himself calm long enough to just then, like, wait out, just sit down here, just kind of wait and not do anything. He's too antsy. He understands that it's drugs, but, you know, the drugs make him want to also just get moving. Like, something still spooks him down here. And because he can't tell if maybe the sounds in the distance are like part of his mind thinks that maybe they found him and he needs to get moving. When really it was just, you know, the reverberant echo of something from way up above. You know, it's nothing, probably. I mean, I guess we don't officially know that, but it's probably nothing, but he's convinced that he has to move. And so he thinks through, like, where do I go? What can I get to? And he figures, well, the most secure location there's the part of the ship that nobody gets to unless they have a meeting, and there's only one way to it, the elevator, and well, 2 ways, the elevator and this back way. He needs to get back to the builder. That's a secure place. If need be, he's bunkered down there before in the like tech room with the jump station. Like, he sets his mind on that he needs to do that. Now, the reality is that Emile is still in a whacked out enough state that he would probably really struggle to find his way back. Like, yeah, his computer, he was able to use that to navigate him to a place before, but that was using like official map data that was publicly available when you're on the station. He can't as quickly access the map that he made of the underground from last time. He's struggling to pull it up, so like he'd probably have a hard time getting to this place and finding his way again, but honestly, I'm not that interested in playing out his, like, stumbling around through the darkness of the underground while whacked out on drugs. Funny as that does sound to explore, we just have enough larger story things to get back to that I don't want to take the time to do that. So we're going to say, like, he does get up to the builder, but because he only had a weak hit on, like, getting his shit together, when he gets there, he's still going to be very much messed up on drugs. He's still going to be very paranoid and not have his complete faculties available. So anyway, he mutters to himself about how last time he was able to find it by following just the electrical conduits, and he's able to do that again. He refines his way, climbs all the way back up to the builder, really tires himself out in the process. He's sweating. He looks haggard. His eyes are super wide as they just look on with a terror of the world. And we get back up to Packrat, who's working at the desk there, because Emile emerges in that front reception area. And so Packrat greets him with just kind of the same sort of nonchalance that we saw from him before, where he's like, I'm sorry, but the builder he's not having any more and like only midway through saying this, he looks up to acknowledge that it even is Emile and goes, Mr. Spencer, well, I don't think he was anticipating your arrival. Do you? And Emile cuts him off just with utter just madness, like leans over the desk, grabs Packrat by the lapels and says to him, look here, you son of a bitch, you don't understand. They're after me. You have to get me in there right now. And Packrat is so thrown off by this. He is not used to doing anything especially quickly, but I am going to make this a compel roll with Iron, because this is definitely leaning into just threatening or inciting. Emile looks utterly mad, and he is utterly mad, and so it's definitely not a heart move. So here we go. We're rolling with Iron as he tries to convince Packrat to let him in. Now, the danger being that Packrat may be like, you're not seeing my boss. You are fucking dangerous. You are a lunatic right now. So let's see. And with that miss, that's exactly what happens. I rolled a 1 on my action die, so I got a grand total of a 2 versus a 6 and a 9. This is a miss. It's just as I described. Packrat, there's one thing he definitely recognizes, and that is that this is not a person that you let in to see your boss. He'd be doing a very poor job as a receptionist. Now, that being the case, he's also probably kind of scared of Emile. Like, he is intimidated. It's just working in Emile's disservice at the moment. So what would Packrat do, thinking that there's a dangerous person here? Oh, I mean, since we have to pay the price on this, because he refuses to let him in. Well, there's first of all that price that Emile can't get in, but I think Packrat is going to basically like hit a silent alarm kind of thing, that it's going to make security team come up here. And in Emile's drugged out state, they're after him as far as he's concerned. That is not a great, I think he's going to notice. He is so aware of all the dangers in the environment right now that he sees Packrat hit this button. Security is incoming. Emile sees this and he is terrified. He knows, once again, he has to get to his hiding hole. He remembers this place he was able to hole up last time, and he remembers he's got an ace up his sleeve. You may recall that we got something when we were salvaging. We got a very special piece of equipment. A phase shifter. Something that if he activates on himself, it will vibrate his molecules in such a way that he can pass through solid objects at will for a little while. He's not being let in to see the builder through the official channels, but if he activates this, he can just pass right through the walls and get there. And terrified as he is, that's exactly what's going to happen. So, he screams at Packrat, "You're one of them, but I'm not going to let you doom me today!" Slams his hand on a button that's on, like, he's probably wearing on his belt or something like that. Just this little device that he can activate, and immediately with a hum, just... we see there's something weird about him. He's just blurry around the edges. I don't think Packrat knows exactly what this is, but Emile straight dashes through the wall. There's like a heavy security door in the way that would ordinarily have to be unlocked, but he just vanishes right through it and begins running his way into the back area where the builder's office is. And once they get into that under area beyond the secret elevator that houses the jump controls. And I think since he can just travel through walls right now, I'm going to do this as a face danger. I don't think he needs to follow the ordinary pathways. He could just kind of cut a hypotenuse as I think there's some resistance. You know, it's not like he just immediately phases right through anything without any effort. He doesn't just like fall through the floor, but it's like swimming in a way where he can direct himself in a way, push against the resistance, and use that to travel in a direction. And so I think he's going to head through the wall, dive down and go through the floor to try and like swim his way down along to find this secret area without the builder even knowing exactly where he is. Because he doesn't, right now in his current state, he doesn't want anybody to know. So we're going to do this as a face danger because he could get utterly lost in there, not following the actual passages to like get to the elevator and all that. He may wind up in a very different part of the ship, just getting turned around, his perceptions throwing him off, his sense of direction getting mixed up. Let's do this. So this is going to be with wits because I think it's more about his awareness of his environment and like going to the right place than his ability to do it. Like, you could make an argument for this being an edge move to, like, the mobility to, like, make his way there, but that's not the challenge. The challenge isn't the physical aspect, it's the mental aspect of where am I trying to get to when I have, like, no sight lines to go off of. When I'm passing through just floors of mostly solid matter, like, you can't really see anything. How do you aim? So this is going to be a wits move. And we don't get a +1 on this. We chose the momentum. Last time we didn't get the +1. Again, ordinarily I would use his computer to help him like find this place, but he's not in the right state of mind to do that. And you know, eventually these drugs are going to wear off. I'm not going to have that held against him forever, but for the moment it's very relevant. So on our wits move we get, okay, a strong hit. You're successful, take +1 momentum. So it probably takes him a little bit of time, but Emile does indeed, he moves through the floor. So once again, like, this is the second time probably where, you know, Packrat sees him run through this security door, is confused as fuck for a moment, but then opens it up to try and, like, chase after him, warn the builder, and by the time the door opens, Emile is vanished. Because he's again gone down through the floor. He's thrown off two pursuers he's thrown off two sets of pursuers this session with this exact same tactic. He swims through the physical matter of the station and eventually gets down to the chamber he's looking for. The back area that he wants holed up in, his little nesting area that'll keep him safe from intruders. He powers down the phase shifter because like it's hard to keep it going. Like, it doesn't feel the most comfortable as your molecules keep getting vibrated like that. He turns it off. At some point we might have to determine like how long it is before you have to start like withstanding it, but I'm not interested in that right now. What I am interested in is I think Emile, again, under the guise of like drugs, making him do poor decisions, I'd like to give him some poor decisions to make here. He is in the room that controls the jump coordinates of all of Hyperion's station. We can take this place somewhere. We could jump this station to Cinder if we wanted to, maybe. And I think at the moment, because that has the most like allies waiting for him there in some capacity, that's exactly what Emile thinks of. He's going to hijack this entire station while he's got a moment to. Because they'll find him down here eventually. And certainly once the station jumps, I think they might get a clue. But in his paranoid state, this is the best decision. It's totally not the best decision. This is a terrible decision, but this is why we enjoy playing role-playing games where we play the characters like they're rented cars. Let's make some bad decisions. It's my favorite way to play. Emile needs to take over this system. Now, I don't know whether I should be rooting for Emile to be successful or to fail. Like, it might be better for him if he fails, but here's what he is going to try and do. He knows that he wants to bring Hyperion to Cinder, right? You know, it's simple enough in theory. He wants to bring Hyperion over to the orbit of Cinder. Now, ordinarily, this would be multiple jumps away. Like, he knows the route. He's got it charted, but that is for a smaller ship and to do it, like, in several jumps along the way. But if he were to try to jump this several times, somebody would definitely stop him before he could get all the way to Cinder. So what he's trying to do instead is recalculate a route so that something the size of an entire space station, Hyperion, gets all the way over there in one jump. Now, this is all kinds of dangerous. You wouldn't want to have this task if you were completely sober, and Emile is not that. The bigger the ship is, the fewer options there are, the more dangers that you're going to run too close to something, and the farther you're trying to jump all in one go, that's also having like a multiplicative effect on how dangerous this is. I think if it goes wrong, I think there are any number of ways that you can push things too hard to try and get this all in one jump that can just rip a ship apart. You got to do it exactly right. And and even if you're successful, you could certainly permanently like burn out the jump engines on here by just redlining them too much to go that far. And to a degree, maybe that's even what Emile wants, that they can't reverse it. Push the engines to their maximum, just enough to actually get there, and then not be able to turn around. And then Hyperion is going to have to help. Again, in no other state of mind would he think this is a good idea, but right now, that's what he's got in mind. So, one thing he does understand, even in this state, is how tricky this is going to be. So I think what he's going to do is, first we're going to secure an advantage. He needs to know more about the ship itself. What is its exact size? How exactly do the jump engines work? Like, he's seen the code, but what are their capabilities? Assess them for any kind of damage. Like, he's just doing a complete diagnostic workup on this ship to find out where are our problem areas? What do I have to compensate for? I need to know everything before plotting this out. So actually, that might be best represented as a gather information. Because we're basically analyzing evidence. We're looking through all the ship's computer stuff and pulling up any information of diagnostic information about all the different components from the just networked computer. Where are all the problem areas and what is everything they needs to know in order to properly calculate a mega jump like this. So we're gathering information. This is a wits roll and we get... Okay, it's a weak hit. So the information provides new insight, but also complicates your quest. Envision what you discover, then take +1 momentum. So for one thing, we discover just how fucking huge this ship is, but also I think we're going to discover that the power core that they have on this ship that operates jump technology, there's just no way it could hold out long enough for that long of a jump. He figured the ship might actually be able to hold out. He discovers that he thinks he could keep the ship from just ripping it apart and just being torn asunder in this. And that's good news. But the power is the problem. It won't make it. It'll redline and burn out long before he actually completes the jump. And one thing you definitely do not want to do, you want to pull out of jump before the jump engine craps out. Because I think that is its own sort of process where there's a power surge that happens when you come out of warp. And if you don't do that through a controlled way, you could be lost in time in space. Weird shit, bad shit can happen if you don't intentionally pull out of a jump. And so he knows oh no, you don't mess with that. If there's not enough power to make it, you don't just chance it and break it along the way. That if the engines fail beforehand, you may never come back. It may take some kind of a miracle. And nobody really even knows what happens to you. Those ships are just lost as far as anybody is concerned. So the power is a problem. Now, in theory, you could supplement this with if you had an additional power core. There are ways to extend this kind of timer if he had enough supplemental power or rerouted it from other areas. I think the problem is there aren't enough big power sink thing. This is by far the biggest power draw on the ship, is when you do these kinds of jumps to jump something this big. There isn't enough power to go around to take from other areas to make it viable. And so it would technically be possible to do this all in one jump with the power as it is, but he knows that the risks would be incredible, that it would blow on the way there and they'd be lost in time and space. And I think that pushes it beyond what he's willing to risk, even in his current state. He's crazy at the moment, but trying to protect himself. And being lost in the warp lanes, that does not sound like protecting himself. So I think he would decide no, it's not worth it. But this perhaps pivots him because he realizes a different possibility. When he thinks about being lost in time and space, when something goes into warp and cannot functionally come out, he realizes that the people that were pursuing him, the way they looked, everything he knows about Anubis, it all is starting to click into place. In his paranoia, he's linking it all together and recognizing the builder told him about these people that were coming all the way from Anubis. He's being chased like this. He's got this weird vibe about it all. Like, it all just fits. He knows there's something here. They must have arrived on a ship or ships. There is a way that you can use this jump technology to move not the entire ship. He could, if he can find out the ships that they came in on by looking through the logs, he could set up a jump to jump their ships just elsewhere. Just jump them away. And because the jump core wouldn't be, because the power core and jump system wouldn't be traveling along with them, they'd just be lost in time and space. Nothing would ever pull them out of warp. And so he could get them just abandoned here on this station. And so Emile does not entirely understand what their motivations are, but he knows that this would put a wrench in their gears, and he knows that clearly they mean to antagonize them, and this would definitely screw up their plans. So he's going to try and identify their ships to see if he can make them jump away. This is going to be another gather information roll. As he's looking through the just like manifests of ships that have come in and out, anything that's been registered, seeing if they logged where they came from. And like clearly the builder knew they came from Anubis, so that must be officially recorded somewhere. Can he find their ships? And then can he modify the jump technology to jump away just that interior component, just those ships? So let's make the gather information roll. There's another wits move. And we get a weak hit on it. So once again, it's going to complicate our quest, but we'll get 1 momentum. So I think what complicates the quest is what he has learned is that because they weren't able to capture him, the ships, they're already off on their way to Cinder. They've decided to disembark. In the time that Emile has been like messing around trying to get up here, they've abandoned this side quest and they're back to their main one. They're on the way to Cinder. Or perhaps I should say, they haven't left yet, but they have filed their flight plan. They are gearing up and getting ready to go. The ships are in the hangar. They are imminently going to be leaving. And if they get outside the station, Emile's not going to be able to jump their ships. Like, the only reason this is possible is because they are within the station's kind of warp bubble that it makes. If they get outside of that, Emile won't be able to influence them anymore. So there is this very limited opportunity as they are just waiting for their window to actually be able to leave. You know, it's all being coordinated with the station. So it's now or never. He's going to have to do this very quickly in order to intercept them. So he starts, doing what he can, modifying the keys, trying to set up systems to be able to intercept these ships and jump them somewhere else, screw them up, send them to a completely different area. And as for whether or not he's going to be successful, well, that's a question for next time. My wonderful listeners, don't do drugs. They make you do terrible decisions. Though at least we did pivot away from maybe the worst version of what Emile could have done by the result of some of those roles. I was ready to make Emile do some really bad ideas, but based on what we learned, it seemed like it was just too bad of an idea to keep going with I'm gonna jump the entire station over there. It didn't make sense, so we needed to pivot. So don't do drugs. Do creativity prompts, and I've got a new one for you. I liked earlier in the session when we were coming up with a Forsaken vow that was sworn to on the iron that became the Forsaken Embrace drug that Emile took in. So I'm gonna ask you to do the same thing. We're gonna do it through the same process. I am gonna roll a couple of oracles here. We're gonna start off with a character goal, and then I'm going to give you an action and theme. And I want you to come up with a vow that somebody has forsaken. All right, so the goal is prove worthiness, the action and theme, command, and religion. Okay, those definitely seem like they could fit together decently. So tell me about a vow that somebody has forsaken. It was about proving worthiness through the action and theme of command and religion. Send me your ideas over at starforgedpod@gmail.com. I'm always eager to hear your answers, and once again, a reminder, even if you're listening to this episode long after it released, if this is way in my past, I don't care. I still want to hear your answers. Send them to me. Remind me at that point, what were the old prompts that I used to ask people about? This is me like 30 years from now. I'm on my rocking chair, looking back on my youth. Remind me all about these prompts I used to ask people. starforgepod@gmail.com. And one more thing. Play me out, music.